yet he's supported socialist governments in very non-democratic countries like Venezuela and Nicaragua. But Sanders says he doesn't like the really bad socialists. Last night on CNN's town hall, he was asked if he supported the Soviet Union. "I don't and never have," he replied. Well, Sanders' defense sounded authentic. The only problem would be if there was like a video of him going on a honeymoon in the Soviet Union, taking his shirt off and singing "This Land Is Your Land" with a group of Soviet comrades. Oh, wait! It turns out there is footage exactly like that. In fact, you're looking at it right there. The Burlington Soviet trip. Look at those rippling pecs. A symbol of the man who once was Bernie Sanders, but is now reborn as the new socialist man. The man who wants to be president, and may be. Save that tape. There he is. Red Square. Oh, it was a different world. Well, Democrats are united that America needs more people. There's only one way to get new people. No, not the obvious way. You're not going to help Americans have more kids, even though they're currently having fewer than they want to have. No, as Julian Castro explained on MSNBC this morning, we need to increase the population right now by opening the borders.
We have an aging population. Our birth rate is declining. We see countries around the world like Japan that are grappling with aging issues. We need a young, vibrant workforce. That means we need a lot of these immigrants who are coming to this country. If we don't get this right, 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to be begging immigrants to come to this country. All of these issues are tied in. So it is about raising revenue. And, you know, we're going to show how we would do that. But it's also about being smart about our economy and about the population growth of this country.
Smart. That's one thing these people are not. They always cite Japan, its aging population. Has Japan opened its borders to immigration? Any immigration of any kind? Oh, no. I wonder why. Doesn't matter. Mayor Buttigieg of South Bend agrees with Mr. Castro. He doesn't care how few skills immigrants have or whether they know English or not. If there's one thing South Bend, Indiana needs more of, it's illegal immigrants. In fact, they're better than legal immigrants, says Buttigieg.
We got plenty of room for more residents and taxpayers who want to help fund the snow plowing and firefighters that I got to have for 130,000 people's worth of city with only 100,000 people to pay for it. And let us not forget that in many respects, from property taxes to sales taxes, undocumented immigrants are taxpayers. And the truth is, in many respects, because they are not eligible for a lot of benefits, they are subsidizing the rest of us.
Yeah, so says Mr. Corporate McKinsey guy. Definitely believe them. That's a good idea. But the other candidates do believe that. This is Democratic consensus now. We need more people, but only the rest of the world can supply them. America cannot produce its own children. We need to take in those of other countries. But here's a novel alternative. What if instead of giving up on America, we helped Americans have the children they would like to have? Right now, Elizabeth Warren is campaigning on a promise to give a $50,000 student loan amnesty to every borrower in the country. It's an expensive proposal, and Warren wants taxpayers to pay for the whole thing instead of asking the colleges that got rich off all those loans to pitch in. We have a counterproposal. What if we gave a complete student loan amnesty to any American who gets married and has 2 or more children? What if we drastically cut the taxes of middle-class families who have 3 or 4 or more children? What if helping American families have children was as much of a priority as protecting Central American families from being deported? I know it sounds crazy. Maybe if you acted on behalf of your own people, they would be grateful once in a while. Eric Metaxas is a radio host and best-selling author of biographies of Martin Luther, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and William Wilberforce. The Bonhoeffer one is unbelievable. I've read it. And we're happy to have him tonight. Join us now. Eric, great to see you.
Always great to be with you. Thank you. I was still trying to get over the topless Bernie Sanders video.
I know, it was a lot. It was a lot, and we should have put up some kind of parental warning, but it slipped our minds. Socialism. Anyway, why, leaving aside like the debate over the details of student loan forgiveness or whatever, why isn't the conversation about how to help Americans have the number of children they say they want to have but can't because they can't afford it? Why does no one ever bring that up?
It's rather simple. The secular left has decided that to be pro-family, to be pro-child, is somehow a patriarchal bourgeois idea whose time has come and gone. Oh, of course, Hitler talked about German women having a lot of kids. We don't want to do that anymore. Fundamentally, when you have a secular worldview and a leftist worldview, you're talking about a zero-sum game. It's a fundamentally hopeless idea that says we can't grow, we'll never grow. We have to import people from someplace else. We don't do growth anymore. And by the way, the European West is not reproducing itself. As secular values encroach and biblical views, be fruitful and multiply, children are a blessing from the Lord, as those ideas go away, you have a staggering situation. It is much more hip to have an abortion than it is to bring a child to term and to say, I'm going to raise this child because children are a blessing. All of these ideas have got us to where we are now. It's very strange. It's very
But I'm
hopeless.
confused. And I agree with your analysis, but like, then what's the point of life? Going on more trips, buying more crap.
That's, of course, that's the point.
Clothes.
Yeah,
I mean,
listen.
what, if it's not, I'm serious. Like, what?
But you're right.
What is the point?
That's exactly right. Nobody really says this because it's too ugly to say it. But if you actually believe that we evolved out of the primordial soup and through happenstance got here by accident, then our lives literally have no meaning. And we don't want to talk about that because it's too horrific. Nobody can really live with it. But what we do is we buy into that idea and we say, well, then what can I do? Well, since there's no God, I guess now I can have guilt-free pleasure. And so I'm going to spend the few decades I have trying to take care of, number one, trying to get as much fun as I can. By the way, having kids requires self-sacrifice. I don't have time for that. I won't be able to have as much fun.
What a lie! What a lie!
It's just, it's,
you know,
it's,
as
it's
you
a
lie there, life ebbing away, and you think, man, I'm glad I made it to Prague. Like, actually, people don't think that as they die.
But
all that really matters is your family. Okay.
Well, you know that, I know that. Most Americans know that. But the secular left, most of whom are the media pundits, don't know that. Most of the people who are the cultural elites don't know that. And they live in a world where to talk about being pro-family or have a lot of kids is unthinkable, it's distasteful.
It's
we
grotesque.
need to keep talking.
And you're right that it is really a change in religious orientation. Nobody ever says that, but it's true, and it's also measurable. So this country's religious landscape has changed a lot. According to the General Social Survey, which the University of Chicago has been doing, I think, since '72, great survey, for the first time ever, the largest single religious group in this country is people with no religious affiliation at all. Almost 1 in 4 Americans don't belong to any religious group. So we think of this as a religious country. Suddenly it's not. Maybe that's the reason things are falling apart, not to simplify too much, but seriously.
That's part of it. Listen, conservative Orthodox Jews, conservative Muslims, conservative Christians have tons of kids. Again,
Yes.
it's the secular liberal elites who live close to where you live and who live where I live. They don't have children and they live in expensive apartments. They can't afford children. It's a cultural divide, and I think it is an issue. But when you talk about atheism or people who don't say they have no affiliation with a religion, which is quite different from atheism, that number is growing, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think what we need are Christians who are serious Christians. I think we had a cultural Christianity in America that sometimes when people talk about the good old days, part of it was good. But to have people who go to church but don't really know why or don't really believe those things, we've got a lot of those, I call them mainline Protestants. There are a few people like yourself who may attend mainline Protestant churches who actually believe the Nicene Creed. But most people who go to mainline Protestant churches, why have they ceased going? Because at some point it became culturally acceptable to stay home on Sunday because nobody believes that stuff anyway. But I think that if you're serious about your faith, you're inclined to have a hopeful view and to say, I want to have children. Even though the world is difficult, it's worth the trouble. It's the most wonderful thing I can do. And frankly, it is happening in the heartland, and I'm glad that it is.
Boy, it's really all, and as you age, you realize it's all that matters. I mean, I just can't, I think I'm going to start asking people when they come on the show, if children aren't the most important thing, what is? Quick, what's the answer?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, if you really believe what the Bible says children are a blessing from the Lord. It doesn't say sometimes you don't want to kill them, right? But the point is that the things that are difficult in life are the most, well, let's put it this way. We know that the things that are the most difficult typically are the most rewarding. And at the end of your life, you say, I am so glad that we stayed married. I love her more than ever.
Exactly.
I'm so glad that I raised my children. Where would I be without them? You know, we need to talk about that more, and I'm grateful to you for bringing it up.
No, well, again, it's all that matters. Eric, it's great to see you tonight.